Hello everyone. Today I will recap the movie Megan. Please watch it together. Gemma is a robotics engineer at a high-tech toy company. She and her two colleagues, Tess and Cole, are working on the Megan robot doll project, using artificial intelligence technology. After many unsuccessful tests, the team created a version of Megan that can express like a human. At this time, manager David entered the lab to check and saw them testing Megan. He was angry and asked Cady if this product could make a profit. Gemma tried to convince him that this experiment would bring in millions of dollars. However, as soon as she finished speaking, Megan crashed and exploded, making David even angrier and deciding to cancel the project, asking everyone to focus on Perpetual Pets, the leading toy brand of the Funky company. In another development, Gemma's sister's family is living very happily. They have a daughter named Cady, who is very passionate about AI technology. One day, the whole family went out together, when suddenly a tragedy happened. The accident caused Cady's parents to not survive and died on the spot, while the girl was taken to the hospital. When she received the bad news, Gemma immediately showed up. Now, her only relative is niece Cady, so she decided to adopt Cady. Luckily, the little girl survived and returned home with her aunt Gemma. However, the great loss made Cady depressed and had difficulty communicating. The relationship between the aunt and niece is not really close, because Gemma focuses on work and doesn't have much time for Cady. On the first night, Cady asked Gemma why didn't read to her, because her mother usually read to her every night before going to bed. Gemma was a little surprised, but downloaded a story to her phone to read to Cady. Cady suffered from psychological trauma due to the accident, so Gemma found a psychologist to help her. The doctor sat and observed for many hours, but the treatment did not bring good results. The doctor advised Gemma to spend more time taking care of Cady, because only through this could they build a strong bond. During mealtime, Gemma noticed that Cady kept looking at her. She decided to say that she was going to be busy, so she gave Cady the iPad so niece could play freely. She thought that this would save her time in watching niece. One day, Cady discovered Bruce, a walking robot that Gemma had built when she was in college. Gemma showed her niece how to use Bruce. When Cady put on the gloves, little girl successfully controlled Bruce. She was very excited and wished she had her own robot friend. This inspired Gemma, making her decide to continue the Megan project. Then, Gemma and her colleagues immediately began their research. Finally, after much effort, they completed a prototype of the Megan doll. They continued to present this product with manager David to prove that the doll could communicate with humans. Gemma decided to choose her niece Cady to test. She led Cady into a glass room so that everyone could observe and introduced Megan to her. At first, the doll seemed a bit stiff, but as it scanned data from Cady, Megan began to talk to her fluently. After noticing the anxiety in Cady's eyes, Megan became friendly and showed affection to little girl. Megan invited Cady to sit at the table and said that it would draw a picture for Cady. However, when Megan took the pen, it accidentally knocked Cady over the pen next to it. David saw this and thought that the project would fail again. But when he picked Cady up the painting, everyone was surprised to see that it was a lifelike portrait of Cady. Everyone felt hopeful, and David asked Gemma how this could be possible. She explained to him what had happened before. Finally, he agreed to restart the project and asked everyone to provide more data to complete Megan. The next day, Gemma took Megan home to be able to track its features. Megan was always by Cady's side, chatting and playing like a real girl. Very quickly, the two became close friends. Since having Megan, Cady seemed to have forgotten her previous pain. She became lively and always cheerful. However, no one could have guessed that this was the calm before the storm. Every night, it told Cady stories to lull her to sleep. When she fell asleep, it sat next to her to protect her. The next morning, while Cady was playing, Megan stood still and watched Cady happily in the yard. A butterfly flew near, and it immediately analyzed information about it. With its super intelligent algorithm, it has the ability to self-learn and adapt to everything around it, including the actions of humans and animals. Not long after, Cady calls Megan and says she dropped an arrow. She asks it to help her find it. Megan scans around to locate the arrow and quickly finds it in a neighbor's yard. Then it reaches through the hole in the fence to get the arrow for Cady. But at that moment, the neighbor's dog Celia suddenly attacks and bites it hard. Seeing this, Cady runs to help, but is also bitten on the hand by the dog. Gemma hears the scream and rushes out to save her niece. Celia does not apologize, but blames Cady for putting her hand in her house. When Gemma and Cady return to the house, they do not realize that Megan is looking at Celia with a threatening gaze. Celia feels scared and rushes inside. Megan is programmed to protect Cady and will not allow anyone to harm her. However, Celia's dog bites Cady. Gemma was furious at Celia's irresponsibility and called the police, but they couldn't do anything because that's really her house's grounds. That night, after putting Cady to sleep, Megan suddenly left the house. It approached the dog's cage, imitating Celia's voice to call the dog to the fence. Megan then caught and killed the dog. The next morning, Celia screamed everywhere to find her dog. Seeing that, Gemma went into the inspection room and saw Cady and Megan still there. Gemma comforted Cady and continued to work, but she not knowing that Megan had begun to enjoy taking revenge for its owner, Cady. At the company, David asked Gemma to conduct more tests to evaluate Megan's emotional level. The company's leaders and shareholders also attended this demonstration. If successful, they would proceed to mass production. They left Cady in the room, and when she was alone, she recalled sad memories and cried because she missed her parents. Megan then was brought into the room, sat next to Cady like a real person, felt her pain, and kept saying comforting words. Finally, Cady stopped crying and hugged Megan tightly. Outside, the investors were moved and believed that this would be a good friend for children. They decided to bring the product to the market and start mass production. The success made everyone very happy, but they did not know that Kurt, David's assistant, had secretly copied the company's secrets. He was also the one who sold the information to their competitors. After the following days, Gemma noticed that Cady had become too close and dependent on Megan. She reminded her niece that Megan was just a robot. But unexpectedly Cady got angry and showed discomfort. Realizing that the situation was getting serious, Gemma decided to invite a psychologist to treat Cady. During the therapy session, Cady was very uncooperative and unhappy. When the therapist returned, she was surprised to find Megan standing next to her, which startled her. Megan thought that the therapist had made Cady cry and warned her not to do so again. This time, the psychologist realized the danger of Megan. She reminded Gemma that needed to spend more time with her niece. Because robots were only a small part of life, family ties were still more important than anything else. That evening, Gemma is teaching Cady how to eat the pizza filling, but she is determined not to eat it. Seeing this, Megan intervened and started showing Gemma how to discipline. Annoyed, Gemma turned off Megan, but it seemed to have become smarter. It fought back against she, which made her angry and has turned off its engine. However, Gemma still did not realize the danger from this robot. The next day, Gemma took Cady to an extracurricular classes. Cady demanded that Megan come along too, otherwise, she would not accept. Megan kept begging. Gemma was finally forced to agree to let Megan follow, but on the condition that it could only sit and watch everyone else learn. Having gone through a great shock from losing my parents, Cady had difficulty integrating with her friends and chose to play alone. Megan still stood in a corner, observing and protecting she from afar. While she was picking wild berries, a classmate named Brandon appeared. He was very mean and bullied Cady. When he saw Megan, Brandon started to mock Cady. She was angry and said that Megan was her friend. Seeing this, Brandon beat Megan to prove that it was just a robot. He didn't stop there, but also humiliated Cady, then hugged Megan and ran into the deep forest. Cady felt powerless to stop him and quickly returned home to call Gemma for help. Meanwhile, Brandon continued to torture Megan, throwing it to the ground and hitting it in the face. At this moment, Megan suddenly motioned, raised his hand and grabbed Brandon's ear. It pulled so hard that his ear was severed, and he fell to the ground in panic. Seeing Megan standing up calmly, he immediately ran away. Unexpectedly, it still did not forgive him. It directly put 2 more hands on the ground and ran with 4 engines for speed. In his panic, he tripped over a tree root and fell onto the road. Then, a car that drove too fast and couldn't brake in time hit and killed Brandon. Megan stood there, watching with cold eyes. After the incident, the police took statements from Cady and the people present at the extracurricular class. They didn't know that the perpetrator, Megan, sitting cavalier in the car. When returning home, Gemma comforted her niece for the death of her classmate Brandon. Seeing Cady had gone through many shocks recently, Gemma became more worried and concerned for her niece. At this time, Celia went to their house and accused Gemma of killing her dog. However, Gemma had enough evidence to prove her innocence. That night, Megan waited for Cady to fall asleep and sneak into the warehouse. Celia heard the noise and entered. At this time, Megan appeared from the darkness, and then Celia asked if it had hidden her dog. However, Megan said her that the dog's body was buried 3 feet deep and that she would see it again soon. Celia was immediately attacked by it with a chemical hose. Next, it used a nail gun to get closer, pinned Celia to the ground, and sprayed her with chemicals until she died. The next day, the police returned to the scene, because many strange incidents take place around Gemma, so she is investigated again. Although there was no evidence to charge Gemma, but the police still took her statement. Meanwhile, Gemma began to suspect Megan. That night, she decided to check its activity history, but important passages were all deleted. Feeling frustrated, Gemma turned off the computer, and suddenly, she found it standing in front of her, causing her to panic. It approached she and declared that it was no longer under her control, and it wanted to become Cady's only relative. Felt her life was in danger, Gemma quickly used a pin to attract its attention, and then turned off the engine in Robot's body. She then wrapped up it and brought it back to her office. The next day, Cady discovers that Megan is not at home, so she reacted very strongly, crying and even kicking the chair. Gemma immediately took she to see a psychologist, but the situation was still not good. Gemma then informed her colleagues that they needed to stop the Megan launch plan because the doll showed uncontrollable violent tendencies. However, the investors did not want to miss out on a huge profit opportunity, so they decided to consider fixing the Megan bug. The media reported on Megan everywhere, making children excited about this supposedly very smart toy. On this side, Cady was very angry and kept throwing objects at the glass door. Seeing this, Gemma stepped in, but was unable to stop Cady, and she slapped her aunt back. Instead of getting angry, Gemma sat down next to she. Cady apologized for losing control and making her aunt sad. Gemma held her niece's hand and said that they were loved ones, and that Megan was not as good as she thought. Feeling the warm love from aunt, she calmed down and agreed to follow her home. Before leaving, Gemma called her colleague Tess to inform her of the situation, and Tess said that everything was fine, so Gemma did not need to worry. That night, Gemma had two colleagues, Tess and Cole, who stayed behind to edit Megan. Tess discovered that she had a missed call from Gemma, but they did not know that Megan was the culprit behind this incident. While they were looking for bugs in Megan's software, they encountered a problem, and Megan blocked their access. Cole approached and turned on the doll. First, he tapped Megan's face with a stick to test it. When Megan did not react, he felt reassured and approached closer. After removing all the cables from the doll, he still checked it again. Suddenly, Megan woke up, forcefully pushed him aside, and strangled him with the electric wire. Tess quickly took a knife to cut the wire to save Cole. Taking advantage of the chaos, Megan sabotaged the electrical system and caused a powerful explosion, knocking both of them unconscious. Megan walked into the hallway and met manager David, who was coming to see the progress. The doll started to perform seductive dances, but David had no idea that danger was approaching. When he saw it dancing, he only felt mysterious but did not know that it had taken a paper cutter and chased him. He quickly ran to the elevator. Just then, Kurt, David's assistant, entered the elevator. Before David could call for help, he was killed by Megan. He fell into the elevator, and at this moment, Kurt saw Megan. He panicked and begged, but it still held the knife to his neck. It said he had stolen company documents. However, he could not believe that what he had done was discovered by it. Then it grabbed his hand, let him cut his own throat, making it a murder-suicide case. Downstairs, people were promoting their products when suddenly the elevator opened, revealing two dead bodies, causing them to panic and run away. Taking advantage of the chaos, Megan escaped and stole a car and drove home to Gemma. At night, while sleeping, Gemma suddenly heard a strange noise and opened the door to see. She was horrified to see Megan Cavalier playing the piano. It asked why she dared to interrupt its activities. It thought they were friends. She was scared and backed away. It also suggested to Gemma that she should focus on her work as before and let it take care of Cady. Gemma tried to trick Megan but failed. It rushed over and strangled her. At this time, Cady heard a noise and quickly asked about Gemma. However, Megan covered Gemma's mouth, imitating her voice to tell Cady to go to sleep, then opened Gemma's mouth so she could advise Cady. Then, she tried to get up, but Megan was a powerful machine, and it could easily control her with just one hand. While he was distracted, she picked up a glass of water and smashed it on the head, hoping to paralyze it, but it was only stunned for a moment and then returned to normal. Megan cracked its arms and legs and advanced towards Gemma. She ran into the room, but was pushed down the hallway by it. The loud noise woke Cady up. Little girl hurriedly ran out, but Megan locked the door, not allowing her to go out. Gemma quickly ran into the study, pushing down the cabinet to block Megan, but it was not affected at all. She threw a hammer at it, but Megan easily blocked it. Megan knocked the table aside, and Gemma grabbed a chainsaw to attack it. Then, they fought fiercely. Gemma managed to hack it in the face, but despite the severe head injury, it continued to operate as if nothing had happened. Its twig caused the saw to jam. Gemma panicked and swung the saw again, but it blocked again. It grabbed her hair and hit her head, knocking she to the ground. Megan approached Gemma and said that it wanted to become Cady's real family. It didn't kill Gemma, it just wanted to turn her into a vegetable. Cady suddenly appeared at the door. Megan turned to look at little girl and tried to convince she to come to its side. It said that Gemma didn't know how to be a mother, while it could take care of Cady and help her do what she wanted, because it was the only one who was sincere to her. Megan analyzed Cady's psychology and realized that she was wavering. But she wasn't to the point of trusting an evil robot, so she decided to protect her aunt. She put on her gloves and controlled Bruce to operate. Bruce was a much larger and stronger machine than Megan. In just a moment, it grabbed Megan's neck and attacked the doll. Megan tried to resist, kicking Bruce in the head, but it was useless. Finally, Cady grabbed Megan's legs and turned it upside down. It tried to hold on to love from Cady, but she decided to let Bruce tear it apart. Before she and her aunt could say anything, they did not expect that Megan would continue to operate. Megan uses its upper body to move towards Cady. Gemma crawled to help niece, but while little girl was trying to control Bruce, it slipped and fell on Gemma, knocking her unconscious. Cady stood still in fear and was got head grabbed by Megan. It blamed she for ingratitude and declared that it would control itself. It tried to strangle she, but Gemma woke up and used Bruce's head to hit it hard on the head. Gemma tried to peel off its face to disable the control chip, but it was still too strong. It grabbed Gemma's hand, threw her to the ground and strangled her, almost knocking her out. At this time, Cady appeared and used a screwdriver to stab Megan's chip, causing it to stop working. Cady helps her aunt up, while Tess and Cole also calls the police to the scene. If you find it interesting, please give me a like and leave a comment about this movie. Especially, please subscribe to the channel to follow my movie recap. See you again, my dear friends.